In our parsha in VaYikra, now we'll tie VaYikra a little bit with Purim. In our parsha, the VaYikra has a small aleph, famous small aleph of VaYikra. There's a big aleph at the end of the Torah, at the very end of the Torah. Ashrecha Yisrael. How fortunate, how great the nation of Klal Yisrael is. Mi kamocha. Right? The Chassan Torah has that one. Right? You learn that. It's the end of the Torah. Ashrecha Yisrael is a big aleph. And Rabbi Bierman brings down that you have to have the small aleph in life, and you have to have the big aleph in life. The aleph, the small aleph of VaYikra, is Moshe Rabbeinu's humility. There's a lot of talk about that. Moshe Rabbeinu was trying to minimize VaYikra. Hashem appears to him in a more minimalistic way. He's trying to tone it down. So a small aleph represents humility. Ashrecha Yisrael, with the big aleph, represents pride. You're supposed to have both. You're supposed to have both. You're supposed to have humility, but at the same time, have a certain sense of pride. Whatever I do, whether it's small, whether it's less, whether it's this, I'm not boasting to have big things. I have humility, but I have a certain sense of pride that whatever I do, it's beloved to Hashem. Hashem loves it. I have such a love affair. Our connection with Klal Yisrael is so, the dveikus is so intense. This marriage with, we have that even if I do a little bit, it's so beloved. That's my simcha. That's my pride of being part of Am Yisrael. Later in VaYikra, it's a famous Rashi, one of the more talked about Rashis in the parsha. Nefesh kisakriv korban mincha. When a soul offers a korban mincha, Rashi on the spot, that's the beginning of Perek Beis. Lo nemar nefesh bechol hakorbanos. You never see the word nefesh in any of the other korbanos. Not by the korbanos nedava, there's no nefesh. Only at a mincha offering. Who normally donates a mincha, Rashi asks? You can't afford cattle. You can't afford a lamb. Who has to bring flour? Who has to bring kemach, a mincha offering? An ani. It's usually the ani. Omar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Male ani alav, kilu hikriv nafsho. I am going to view it, even though it's a poor man's offering, it's as if he gave his soul. It's so beloved to me, it's as if he gave his soul. This is what it means. I'm humble. We're humble. We don't have much to give. We realize that. My davening, it's not the greatest davening. I understand that. My learning, my chesed, my this, my that, my benollah, I'm lacking. I'm an on. I have humility. I'm not fooling myself. But I still have a pride. I can still have a pride that Hashem loves it. It's Mesameach Hashem. And to Hashem, it's worth tons. The Gemara in Megillah highlights the Korban Mincha. Where in the story of Megillah's Esther does the Korban Mincha come up? A little trivia question in Maseches Megillah. So the Gemara on Daf Tes Zayin Amud Aleph, end of the first parak, the Gemara says the following: Haman is going to Mordechai to get him ready to go on the horse. He found, Haman finds Mordechai, he's sitting with Talmidim around him. Umach v'lahu hilchos kemitza l'Rabbanan. And Mordechai is teaching them the laws of the Korban Mincha. And he's talking about Kmitza, how you take the flour and the rest of the Gemara continues that Mordechai chases everyone away. Watch out, Haman's coming. Everyone go, leave me. Nis'atef Mordechai. Mordechai wraps himself up to daven, mekamle litzlusa, and Mordechai davens as Haman's approaching. Also Haman v'yosele kamayu. Haman comes to Mordechai, sees him davening, and he waits there until he finishes davening. Funny story, but okay. Haman's waiting there while Mordechai's finishing the Shemona Esrei. Omar le b'mayas kisu. Haman wants to get into learning with Mordechai. What were you learning? What sugya you're holding in? Amrulei. Mordechai says to Haman, Bisman shebeis hamikdash kayim. When the Beis Hamikdash was standing, man d'midnadei mincha, whoever brought a korban mincha, he would do kemitza, and he would have kapara. What does Haman say to this? What's Haman's response about hearing about the korban mincha? The poor man's korban. Great line. Haman answers right now. Omar le. Haman says to Mordechai, Osa malekumsa kimcha ditchu. Comes your handful of flour. Your simple handful of flour. Vidachi, and outweighs and overpowers. Asara alfe kikre kaspa didi. My 10,000 silver coins is beaten by your handful of flour. That's the korban mincha. The most poor korban. The most humble korban. See, even though we're poor, and there's a lot of things going on that we don't have, and we wish things were different, but we have to bring a poor man's korban. It's so beloved, and it's so powerful. That brought the Yeshua. Those are the things that could bring the Yeshua for Klal Yisrael. And if we could take it a different step, let's build on this step now. Follow me with this step now. Perhaps, with many people, it's hard to generalize, but perhaps with many people, it's dafka because the person's an ani. An ani is a metaphor. It's dafka because the person's an ani, that he puts his whole soul into it. He puts his whole nefesh into it. And that's what's so beloved. And that's what's so pleasing and powerful. And perhaps, if that person wasn't an ani, he had things berevach. He had no issues, no stresses, no whatevers that we all have. His avodah wouldn't be as great. He wouldn't turn to Hashem with his whole soul. It's possible. Maybe Hashem knows that this is the measure we need to have our avodah have such greatness to it. And he makes us ani in certain areas. Purim, one of the themes of Purim is Bittul Adas. The Svarim, the Shmuzim on Purim, a lot of people talk about Bittul Hadas. Bittul Hadas, hey, we get drunk, we have no intellect. Bittul Hadas, that's it. But what is that Bittul Hadas? Where we negate our intellect. We don't know the difference between a Baruch Mordechai and an Or Haman. We don't know what's for the best. We don't know that maybe this stress, this ani that we have, is the best thing. That's what's making our avodah so pleasing. That's what's beating the silver coins of the Hamans out there. Maybe because we have that, it's the best thing, and we don't realize it. Maybe we could be complaining. Now, we always try to daven to get out of tsaros. There's nothing wrong with davening. There's nothing wrong with tishtadlus, to try to improve your situation. But sometimes we're not besimcha when we have issues in life. And we complain, and we gripe, and we have tinus. And we don't realize, maybe it's the best thing that's happening to us. And it's absurd that we're complaining about it. Hashem's doing it to help us, and it's the greatest thing for us. And we're complaining. Rav Biderman tells a story, unbelievable story. From the way he sounds, the way he relates it, it's like a true story. About a Rebbe Yisrael. He's one of the directors of a hotline called Lev Shomea. It's a hotline for yeshiva bachrim. And this Rebbe Yisrael told Rav Biderman the following story. That once a father called a hotline, told the therapist who answered that he's going through the following hardship. We have several children that need to be married off. We'd like to marry the oldest one first. We'd ideally try to do that. And the oldest boy, it's taking a very long time to get engaged. And Baruch Hashem, things are moving in the right direction, and we're about to finalize a shidduch. About to close in on a shidduch with this boy. But all of a sudden, for whatever reason, this soon-to-be chassan, he broke one of the rules of the yeshiva. He broke one of the more serious rules in the yeshiva. The yeshiva is very strict about these types of things, and the Rosh Yeshiva is ready to expel the boy. And the father calling in on the hotline is saying, if the girl's family hears that my son's expelled from yeshiva, that's it. Shidduch's off. And especially the girl's brother learns in the same yeshiva. So he's going to know about it. I can't hide it from them. The therapist on the other line who received the call said, he'll try to help, He called Rabbi Yisrael, the director, and Rabbi Yisrael calls the Rosh Yeshiva. He explained to Rosh Yeshiva what expelling this boy, what the ramifications are. And maybe you can't look at just the isolated event, look at the bigger picture, and maybe you don't have to be a stickler for the rules this one time. The Rosh Yeshiva explained the rules of the yeshiva need to be upheld. Otherwise, other students will do the same thing, and we have to keep to it. But nevertheless, he heard that there's other issues. It's a chas, it's a shidduch. So he said, come to the yeshiva tomorrow night. We'll discuss it. We'll have a meeting. Perhaps we can find some solution, but it's not pashut. So here's where the story continues. Rabbi Yisrael takes the 402 bus, which goes from Bnei Brak to Yerushalayim, to attend the meeting. Next to him on the bus is sitting a 50-year-old man who's facing the window, sleeping. Rabbi Yisrael has to make a few phone calls related to the meeting. He's trying to prepare for this meeting. So he's trying to be very cautious. He's talking. He doesn't want to say names. You don't want to talk about names on a bus. That's not how you're supposed to. So he's trying to be very cautious, not to say names, not to give away anything what he's talking about, but he has to make certain phone calls. He speaks quietly, trying not to awaken the man next to him who's sleeping. All of a sudden, the person next to him turns around and says, haven't you ever heard about Gezel Shena? He was clearly woken up and he was irritated. Can you please stop talking? I'm trying to... I'm very sorry, I apologize, I'm sorry. And then he does it again. And he's critiqued for, could please be quiet, I'm trying to sleep. Rabbi Yisrael puts his phone on vibrate, and he'd postpone any of the other phone calls when he gets off the bus. His neighbor turned around and went back to sleep. Rabbi Yisrael's phone vibrates again. It's the Rosh Hashiva now. He felt that he has to answer. He just has to answer to Rosh Hashiva. So in a very whispering tone, hello. The Rosh Hashiva hears that he can't talk. He says, I know you can't speak right now. I just want to tell you everything's taken care of. I spoke with the Bachar. He promised he won't do these types of things. I allowed him back in the yeshiva. Done. We don't need a meeting. We don't need anything. Rabbi Yisrael is thrilled. It worked. All the phone calls, all the pressure, things worked. One more phone call. He has to call the father now. He wants to tell the father the great news. The father's probably tittering at the edge. The bus was approaching Motza at the outskirts of Yerushalayim, and the lights of the bus were turned on. So Rabbi Yisrael figured he could risk now placing the call. The lights went on in the bus. As he waited for the father to answer the phone, Rabbi Yisrael saw the person who sat next to him was also taking out a phone from his pocket, so now he could speak freely. Rabbi Yisrael could hardly contain his words. As soon as the father picked up, he said, I spoke with the Rosh Hashiva, your son can return to the yeshiva. And as he's speaking, he hears his voice. The person sitting next to him was the father. All along, the person sitting next to him was the father of that bachar. The father said, I don't believe it. You're making phone calls to help my son, and I'm on your case, and I'm complaining, and I'm criticizing you, and you're doing this all to help me. I'm so sorry. I apologize. I'm humiliated. The father explained to Rabbi Yisrael he couldn't sleep the previous night. He was so worried about his son. So he didn't sleep he lost a whole night's sleep. I decided I'd go to the Kosel to pray for my son. I was hoping to sleep a little bit on the bus. And that's why I was so upset when I was kept on being woke up. But now I realize, you were trying to help me. I'm so ashamed. How could I have rebuked you? This is sometimes, Rabbi Biderman tells over this story. Because sometimes Hashem is just doing things to help us. Sometimes HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving us this thing. He's waking us up here, waking us up there, nudging us, making us a little uncomfortable. He's trying to help us. And we're turning back and we're complaining and if we just realize it's all for our good. Maybe because it's the korban ani, that's dafka why it's so beloved. And that's how we're beating the Hamans out there. I just want to end off. The Gemara in Daf Yud Gimel and Megillah. Haman was so happy when the poor fell out on Adar. Right, that famous Gemara. He was so happy. It's the month that Moshe Rabbeinu died. This is great. Good news to defeat the Jews. But he didn't know, the narrator says, he didn't know, little did he know, that others also the month that Moshe was born. What does this mean? What does it mean? So the Maharal explains that all things have an end. There's a termination time for everything. And Haman was trying to tap in to when is there the end of Klal Yisrael's, glorious ride here. When that time is over, that's a time that's ripe that he'll be able to, Chas v'shalom, go through his decree to destroy Klal Yisrael. And he saw in the cards, Adar! This is a time where Moshe Rabbeinu died. He saw within the bigger picture, this is a time that's ripe for the termination, the end of Bnei Yisrael's ride. But what didn't he know? The Maharal explains the Gemara, what didn't he know? That the same month that he died, that's the same month he was born. The Maharal explains that when things reach a time of tzara for Klal Yisrael, and it is an end time possibly that could lead to an end of certain great things. And Klal Yisrael feel that and respond and react, and we give our korban ani, and we give our davening, and we come together and we do our tshuva. Then Hashem makes a rebirth, and He puts a new reset, another life, and we can restart again. It's not only the month that Moshe Rabbeinu died. The same month that he died could be the same month that he's born again. And Klal Yisrael keep on doing this. When we respond to the tsaros and we get our tshuva together, even if it's a humble karbanani. But that is mechadesh. In Shamayim, a new lease, a new term. And we can have a new start. We're born again. And that's the time for Yeshua. And that's what happened in the times of Esther. All of a sudden, their tshuva was not the greatest tshuva. They were still on a low matzav. But their tshuva was the korban ani tshuva. And it was powerful enough to beat, the mincha was able to beat Haman. And it created a whole new start. And once you have a new start, then all Yeshuas can come. That's what we're davening for. Back to our first piece that we started with tonight. That's what we're davening for in Purim. Reset, restart. And Yeshuas can come. Whatever problems we had until now, if we just clear it and start over, Yeshuas can come. We can just tell that to the Melech. Have a freilich in Purim, a good Shabbos, and B'soros Tovos for Klal Yisrael.